Hi there, everyone. It's so good to be back with you. And today we are talking about supplements and some other things that can help you eat, especially when you're dealing with mast cell activation syndrome. So wanted to go with this topic because food intolerances and just digestion, food challenges, particularly food sensitivities, are so common in people dealing with mast cell activation syndrome. So we're going to talk about some supplements, but we're also going to talk about some other tips and tricks that even if you're not taking supplements or maybe have those supplements on board that you can bring in that aren't even anything that you have to swallow and take. And I'm excited about this. And then we're going to do our Q&A towards the end, and I'll get as many off-topic questions as I can. Do please only submit your question one time. That really helps me to get to as many as possible. And if you're on with me, I would love for you to post a hi and where you're from in the comments so I can see who's here. And it's just wonderful to see your names. And then that just helps us hold all of us together when there's a virtual space to be connected. So just let us know that you're on by popping a hi. So I see Anna and Kim. It's good to be with you all. A couple quick things to go over here that we always have to do at the beginning is let me get these rolling for you. And so, of course, this is for informational, educational purposes. It's not meant to treat, diagnose, cure, prevent any illness. So do work with your healthcare provider because everyone's case is unique. What's going to work for you may be different than what works for other people. So we found that in this community, things need to be customized. And that's one of my big goals is to help you all think about how do you customize this and use your discernment, things like that. All right. So you may see some affiliate links. I always like to be fully transparent. That does mean Mast Cell 360 can make a small commission if you purchase through the link. Very circumspect about that. It's products we've tested out, used in the practice, used personally, and it never costs you anything extra, but that helps go to support these free resources that we put out for you all. So if you want to support us back, that's a great way that you can do it. And so we're going to go into some of this here. And while we're talking about this, there is going to be an email that goes out. I wanted to let you all know because I do have a supplements course. If you haven't picked it up, it's mastcell360.com/masterclass. And I'll leave that up. And these videos are always available. You can go back if you miss a link or something and find it once the live is over. And you can get $20 off through Friday at midnight. So just to let you guys know that is going on. And we talked about our Q&A reminders here just to keep it on the topic. And do please only submit your questions once. Can't do in-depth personal health questions, but if I can generalize them, then I will. So I want to talk about today things that can help your gut health and help with your food intolerances. I want to talk about the relationship between gut health, the immune system, your mast cells, and the nervous system. And I've got a couple study slides to show you on those. And then we're going to talk about some tips on introducing using mast cell supplements and medications. Of course, with the discretion and under the supervision of your prescriber, some thoughts on how you can do that to help improve your food tolerances and some things if you can't yet tolerate supplements. So let's start with some of the background on this that's important to then take us into why we're talking about some of the things that we're talking about. So this is an image. Again, there's a lot on here. I just like using these for illustration. This is from a 2012 study, and it was looking at intestinal mast cells and gut inflammation. And the main point to recognize here that it's talking about is that there are a ton of mast cells that line the GI tract. We know that mast cells are in almost every tissue in the body, except the retina, as far as I'm aware. It's in the brain. They line the whole nervous system, but especially these hollow spaces. So we think about the sinuses, we think about the GI tract, we think about the vaginal canal, even down in the ears, there's mast cells, because what they're doing is they're sensing And what's so fascinating about our GI tracts is we think about it being internal to the body, right? But it's really just a tube that's external to all the tissues. And so those mast cells are there monitoring whether or not what we're eating is safe for us. And so think about if you get food poisoning, those mast cells are part of that initial response to go, send everything to the exit. We don't want that. But it's also monitoring just every molecule of water, every molecule of food that we put in. And the other thing that this study was talking about is that there's a lot of nerve endings also in the GI tract. So we talk about those mast cells being interwoven with the nervous system because how they line the nerve sheaths and the nerve endings. And there's a huge amount of our nervous system in our gut. And we talk about this, right? We say, I've got a gut feeling. We actually process in our guts. A lot of us kind of know that innately. But this relationship between the mast cells and the nervous system and the gut is really, really important, particularly in nervous system. Um, Thinking about the nervous system and thinking about how we can use the nervous system to help ourselves to eat more. And I'm coming from having had food intolerances to where I was down to about 10 foods, including my herbs. And it was, I had a lot of what they call hyper sensitivity, visceral hypersensitivity. Just my gut felt bad all the time. And I'm wondering if anybody has any of that, because if so, then some of the things we're talking about in terms of this nervous system piece may also really help you. And so let's move forward to this next one that I want to show you here. And this is again this relationship between the gut and the brain axis. So this is going to lead us into the first tips that we're going to talk about, which aren't even supplements, where to start, so that your supplements and your medications that you're using can be even more effective. And so we just know that there's a huge relationship between the mast cells, what's happening in the brain, what's happening with our thought processes, our neural pathways, and coming down to the gut. And so this is one of my favorite studies here on this. It's from 2019. And it's talking about that we can really influence the mast cells and the gut negatively through our nervous system or positively through our nervous system. And this tie in also with the hormones and the rest of the immune system. And then this is the last slide I wanted to show you guys. This is from 2022. This is an article on mast cells in food allergy. And we talk about food allergies and food sensitivities. And so the main thing that I want to point out here is that we can have IgE food allergies, and that can be some of that immediate. So I had somebody has a peanut allergy, and so it's so severe they can't get on a plane without having anaphylaxis if there's peanuts on the plane. We hear of those kinds of things. There's also lower grade IgEs that can happen that don't cause that anaphylaxis. Like I've had some of those to things like broccoli, but they were low level in terms of the testing results. And that was just from that overall immune dysregulation. And those tend to improve over time. And we've talked about mast cells have these receptors. So you see this receptor here. This is the Fc epsilon receptor. Now, if you're a practitioner, that's probably pretty interesting. If you're a beginner, don't worry about these complex names. The key is that we have all these receptors on the outside of mast cells, over 200 of them. And what's happening is that if these receptors are dysregulated and they're hyper vigilant, we could use that word, then they may be reacting to things that we shouldn't be reacting to inappropriately. Then we have a different receptor here. So this Fc gamma R2b, and this is where the IgG is. This is more that like delayed. These are backwards. So IgG is going to be more your delayed response, and then more your immediate response here. And so thinking about how all of this trickles down and how can we work with this and calm these mast cells. And a lot of what we do is to calm through signaling from the nervous system, and we calm through helping these receptors to re-regulate. So let's start with some of our basic tips. Before we even get into supplements, it's how do you eat? And one of the most important things when talk about is you guys know about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic, it's very simple model and not fully complete, but we can use it as a simplification. That sympathetic nervous system is that kind of fight or flight, worry, anxiety, trouble settling down. And then the parasympathetic, when we are in a healthy parasympathetic response, now we can be in a shutdown parasympathetic response, but when we're in a healthy parasympathetic response, then we feel calm, we feel relaxed, we feel in our bodies, we feel embodied. And that response leads to better digestion and improves food tolerance. Why is that? Because if we're revved up and feeling anxious and worried and stressed, which is kind of unfortunately the state of our culture, then that sends signals to our guts that things are not okay, to be on alert, things aren't safe. So we can get ourselves more relaxed before eating, then we can send those messages down the system that it's safer to eat. So this is a process, but I want to give you some things to be thinking about as you're going on this journey. So one is to try nervous system calming techniques before you eat. And so you may have different things that work for you. Some of you are doing some of the listening programs, or you might be doing primal trust. We can pop those links in there. There's an app called New Calm that we really like. We can pop that link in for you guys. But anything like that, if you can do a little bit of that before you eat, and even if you don't have time to do a 15, 30-minute meditation. Now, if you do, that's really wonderful to do before you eat and then after you eat, even if it's 10 minutes. But if you don't, here's something simple. You can just have your food there, put your hands on your heart, smile at your gut, and take a deep breath and just a gratitude. So let's try this if you want, if you'd like to try it with me. You can just put your hands on your heart, close your eyes, take a nice breath, and just smile at your gut. Don't think about it, just smile at your gut and just gratitude. Oh, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to have food. When I was down to not a lot of food, not a lot of options, I would start with this. I'm so grateful to have something. One of the other things, and so you could stay with that for a little bit. I didn't mean to pop off of that so quickly, but you can just stay here for just a minute or two. And I'm going to give you some more tips that you can work into that. Some of you know the VU breath, and so you can smile and go, VU. So it's VUUU. VU. And that humming, there's been studies on that, sends a calming signal. It's really important to keep meal times calm. This is some practical things that I learned over time. I used to eat very quickly. I used to not be present with my food, and that never helped my digestion at all. So keeping things really calm as you're eating. And then chewing well. So this is one that I've had to really train myself on. And when I had braces, that slowed me down. But again, I wasn't being as present as I could have been eating. And I found being more present has really helped my digestion, just how my gut feels. And chewing well, we talk about that so much. You hear that so much. But it's really critical for food to start to get broken down in your mouth, especially if your GI tract is having any trouble. So the digestion starts in the mouth. There's a lot of enzymes that come in, these parotid enzymes, and the parotid gland makes these enzymes that start to break down food before it even gets to the stomach. So we tend to think about it getting broken down in the stomach, but we want to break it down in the mouth. Now, what if you have trouble chewing, or what if there's a lot of trouble digesting? One of the things that I've done and has worked really well for a lot of people I've worked with is to puree foods if you can. Now, you still want to get some chewing action, so you keep your jaw and your teeth in good shape. But if you can sometimes puree foods, and then if you do that, so I've pureed soups, and that's actually not bad. I've taken a piece of chicken, and I had some broccoli, and maybe I had something else with it, some carrots and some rice, and then you can warm that up and just puree that, and it's actually a pretty tasty soup. It's not bad. Smoothies and things like that. So hold those in your mouth for a few minutes so it starts to break down before swallowing if you need to. If your gut's really touchy, that's something you can try. And then just a slowing down. So going quickly is part of that sympathetic response. Slowing down is really important. Slowing down when we eat. Can we put our fork down between bites? And that takes a practice. It takes a practice. And that's why I like to start with just hands on my heart and a little gratitude, because it just brings me into that awareness. And so you may have to find your own way through. So these are ideas to try and then see what works for you, and build kind of your own pre-meal meditation or practice here. The other thing is just to breathe. When you're breathing, let your abdomen relax down. And so one of the things I've been working with is after I finish inhaling, as I'm exhaling, relaxing the muscles of my diaphragm. So the diaphragm goes all the way around. It's kind of like an umbrella shape there under the rib cage from front to back. And it can get tense, and it holds a lot of emotional energy. And so to take a breath and then just let that relax and see if you can pay attention to it in the front and the back, and let the abdomen muscles relax. A lot of times we hold tension there. Another thing that you could try is just some real gentle abdominal massage, not like kneading really deeply, but just, I'll stand up here so you can kind of see, just some gentle going in a circle can help. One of the other things is to put your finger at your navel and make a spiral going out nice and slow. Sometimes this is really calming. And then when you get out to the edges of the abdomen, you can go a lot slower even than I'm going. And then you just spiral back in. Sometimes those types of things will help settle. And then we talked about smiling at your GI tract. Now let's talk about some other things you can do if you have things that you're taking to support your mast cells. So here's some ideas here. So for medications, if you have some mast cell supporting medications are prescribed to you, sometimes prescribers may recommend taking some things 30 minutes before meals just to help calm those mast cells down before you start to swallow food. And so, of course, this is always at the discretion of your prescriber and under their supervision. So, just information here for you as you have these conversations with your prescribers. But ketotifen and cromolyn sodium are two that are often used that way. There's others that can be used that way, but something just be thinking about. Can we prepare those mast cells for the food? And it's usually not like a timer 30 minutes. You don't have to worry about that. But just getting it in somewhat between the meals, around 30 minutes, can be helpful. And then even if you forget, just taking it before you start eating can help. But there's kind of about 30 minutes for most people tends to allow it to start to have some action. Then there's some supplements too. Now, baking soda is one that some people use, but you don't want to take it too close to the meal. You really want to get that further away, because baking soda as a bicarbonate will buffer the pH of the stomach, and you don't want to lower your stomach acid. That could cause some reflux. Some people are sensitive to baking soda if they have uh, stomach acid issues. So if you try the baking soda, you might do just a sprinkle and see how you do. Some people do great with it. Some people, it can cause some rebound reflux, especially if there's like a hiatal hernia where the stomach's pushed up and the little flaps not closing to the esophagus. But for other people, that can work really well. Just remember that it does have sodium. So if you have high blood pressure, that might not be your best bet. If you can take quercetin or perilla extract, those are things that can be taken about 30 minutes before meals and can just help calm the mast cells. And those, for most people, are okay on an empty stomach. Now, if you have salicylate intolerance, of course, the baking soda is low salicylate, and so are those medications. So, some thoughts for you guys there. Then the other things on these supplements, do make sure you're using good quality supplements. So we want to use the higher, what are typically called like pharmaceutical grade brands. That's so that you get the consistent amount in each tablet. There were some studies run on some of the brands like Now Foods and some of the grocery store brands or the GNC brands and things like that, where they didn't have the same amount per capsule. So that can make it a little hard to tell what's working, what's helping if you're getting a lot more one time you go to eat and then a lot less the other time. There's some things that don't matter, but when you're really working with mast cell activation, I used to try to save money and get the cheaper brands, and I just wasn't getting good effectiveness. So I learned that the hard way. And be really careful about supplements on Amazon. So you can take a look at our store or like places like Full Script. But Amazon, there's been some climate control issues where the supplements degrade. This is especially a big deal in things like GABA. There's been a lot of reports of counterfeit issues and toxicity where they make it look exactly like pure encapsulations or Douglas Labs, but the label looks exactly the same, but it may not be. So you just have to be really careful there. So I'm going to talk about some specific supplements now. But when you're onboarding supplements, of course, start low and go slow if you have sensitivities. Now, I talk about three sensitivity levels. There's people who are robust, and they typically can start supplements at a capsule. They can typically start a little more. Maybe they can start two or three things at a time. Then a lot of people are in the category of being sensitive. So sensitive people need to start with sprinkles. They need to increase slowly, and that approach will work better. And then hypersensitive people tend to struggle with taking more than one or two supplements or may not be able to tolerate any. And so sometimes with hypersensitivities, you've got to do a lot of nervous system calming, things like our mindset program coming up. We've got the nervous system, mast nervous system reboot. Those are helpful for everybody, but for people with hypersensitivities, we usually have to start there before we get into some of these supplements. And then just a reminder, a lot of you know this, but we've got some new people here. And the reason we're starting slow with sprinkles is that if you do have a reaction, and if you had a small amount, you'll have a smaller reaction to starting with a whole capsule, but also it tends to slip past the hypervigilance of the mast cell nervous system axis if we start slow. So that's how I was able to start to get things on board and what's worked for a lot of sensitive people in our community. And then if you're sensitive, so if you're in the robust category, then this may not apply to you. But if you're sensitive, do only try one thing at a time. That way you can tell what's what. And I really encourage my clients to keep just a very brief journal. Today I started this supplement and I started this much. And then if I noticed a change that helped, because you may need a few days trying something to really see. So that tracking can help. So I want to talk about some different things that can help you. And one of the things I want to start with is actually a tea, not a supplement, called Go-To Cola Tea. I learned about this from my mentor and good friend, Jill Krista. And Go-To Cola Tea is a tea that comes out of India. Now, this does have some salicylates for those of you with salicylate intolerance, but if you don't have salicylate intolerance, it helps calm that nervous system GI axis, and you want to make sure you get it organic. If you're sensitive, you could start with steeping it for about a minute and take a few sips and build up slowly and then work up to a cup. If you're not as sensitive or you tolerate teas really well, then you could start with a cup and you would drink that a little while before you started eating. Sometimes that just helps calm the system. So that's a really simple thing. And it's a nice tea. You can, I like to put a little stevia in it. Whatever works for you is fine. It's also okay without. But just a little on the bitter side if you don't do something to sweeten it. But I wanted to let you all know about that tea because it's pretty interesting. And then we've talked about diamine oxidase on here. So why do we use this? Diamine oxidase we typically use. This is different than your digestive enzymes because this is specifically breaking down histamine. And, let me go back to the go-to cola because Michelle had a question about it, and then I'll come back to DAO, and then I'm gonna do these, questions towards the end here too. So any idea about the oxalate content in that tea? I'm pretty sure that was tested, Michelle, and, it tested fairly low, so I really try to keep an eye on those things. I'm just double checking for you here, but, and it might take me a minute if it's not coming up. Um, yeah, we might have to recheck some other sources, but I've not had oxalate challenges with that tea as long as you're not over steeping it. So always think about it's your steeping time. Okay. Now coming back to the DAO. Um, you can take this typically the ideal is about 10 to 15 minutes before the meal. And it's okay to open it in a capsule and sprinkle it on food and water. And then you can take more if you're eating out or you're starting to add foods back in. But what is DAO doing? It breaks down histamine in the gut. Now, it's not breaking down your carbohydrates, it's not breaking down fibers or fats or anything like that. It's very specific to histamine. And so this is called diamine oxidase, DAO, diamine oxidase. And this is made naturally in our small intestines. We also make it in our kidneys, and the placenta makes it. So this is part of the reason why people with histamine intolerance often feel better when they are pregnant because the placenta can make a lot of DAO. Now, there's other reasons people can feel worse when they're pregnant, but um, if you have histamine intolerance, even with low histamine, I found, and we've seen in our practice, that people who take it with every meal tend to do better um, because just the act of digesting when we've got those activated mast cells can cause histamine release. And this is the formula I formulated. There's some other brands out there, but this one needs a little B6 to activate it. And so, or DAO just in general needs B6 to activate it. And so this just has like the tiniest little bit of B6. It's like 1 milligram. It's very small. And you can open the capsule. This is low salicylate. And so that's a good thing to know about. So low salicylate, and that link there will take you to where you could order mastcell360.com/DAO120. So just wanted to put that on your radar, and that's easy to start with sprinkles if you haven't tried it. There was a question that came up last week about DAO and glutamate. So this gets a little confusing online. There is a totally different enzyme that the gene is called DAO, and that has to do with the glutamate pathways. So not the same as this diamine oxidase supplement. Then we want a digestive enzyme when we're ready for that. Why do we want that? Because digestive enzymes are often they're made in the there's digestive enzymes that are made in the pancreas and ones that are made in the small intestine. And when we start to have trouble with digestion, trouble with our GI tracts, particularly with mast cell activation, we can get more inflammation. The more inflammation we get, the harder it is for the body to make these enzymes. So and then if we can't digest that food, it's more agitating to the GI tract. So what this does is just help you digest that food, break it down so it's easier to get the nutrients out of. and it's easier on your mast cells because the food is more broken down. And DAO, I said before, was made in the small intestine, so we can get reductions in that DAO, and it's one of the um, causes of histamine intolerance. There's some others, but that's one of the more common ones. And then here with the holozyme, this is going to have things like your protease, your amylase, your so lipase. So those are pancreatic enzymes that break down fibers, they break down proteins, they break down fats. And then it has some of the other um, small intestine enzymes. So that are made in the brush border of that small intestine. And I think I can show you here the other ingredients real quick. Let me see. Pull this label up for you. Here we go. So we can talk about this. Okay. And hopefully, if I make that bigger, you guys can see it. So this is what we're talking about here. And you want something that's a little more broad spectrum. Now, why does this have kelp in it? It has kelp because those enzymes need minerals to activate it. And a lot of people have trouble with this mineral absorption. Same with the B6 absorptions. That's why in mast cell activation, if we can add those activating factors, it can help. And then it does have a little citrate, which normally we try to avoid, but this doesn't seem to have, it seems to get used up in this activation process. So again, this is what these minerals are here for. And yeah, Charisse, that's what I'm talking about is this magnesium citrate. Now, some people who are really, really sensitive don't do as well with this one. So you could use um, Digest Enzyme Gold is one of the ones I've used, but this has been pretty well tolerated. They do a 60-day money back guarantee, which is unusual for a supplement company. Um, oh, Fatima, this is great. Thanks for telling me. So they're dropping the kelp from the ingredients. Good. So they should have that updated soon. And that's excellent. So then that when that happens, that'll be low salicylate. That's really wonderful. Thanks for sharing that here. So whether you're using this one, this is my favorite. This is the one that we use in the clinic. Whether you're using this one or you're using a different one, a um, broad spectrum digestive enzyme is really important. Now, betaine HCl is also important, but I didn't include it in here because that one's a little trickier. So I'm looking at just where to get started if you're sensitive. Now, I've got a couple others here. I really like this Healthy Gut Company, and tributyrin X is a type of butyrate. And butyrate is made by your gut bacteria, and it's really important to keep the gut bacteria in balance. And it has a lot of properties, particularly mast cell stabilizing properties, can help tolerate more foods, and it's really important with the gut lining and helping to support the gut lining. And it helps with the growth of good bacteria and can help modulate or reduce the amount of the bad bacteria that you don't want in your gut. Now, if you have FODMAP intolerance, this is even more important. So this is one of the cores that we use when people are ready for it to help with their guts. But with FODMAP intolerance, it's those fibers that are getting digested that help make butyrate. And so if we're having trouble with those FODMAPs, which are going to be like onions, garlic, um, cauliflower, some of the fruits, particularly apples and mango and things like that. If you get a lot of bloating and gas, then you could have some trouble with FODMAPs. And then what this does is it helps rebalance the gut and provides that butyrate. Even if you don't have FODMAP intolerance, though, this tends to be really helpful for the gut. And typically, if somebody has constipation, they would take one about every third day. Or if you have loose stools, and I have loose stools, I've taken up to 3 per day, so spread throughout the day. And it's really helped to rebalance my gut. Now, here's the trick with this one. You do not want to open the soft gel if you can help it. Although that's what they say because it has a very strong smell. Butyrate just naturally smells really strong. But I have had some people who they didn't have a sensitive sense of smell, so they did trim it and they put a drop in an empty capsule. So I'll leave that to you guys if that's something you want to do. Now, and you can get $15 off your order for these products. Let me go back because I didn't talk about that before with the Healthy Gut, Holozyme. They've got $15 off for you all right now if you want to try these. And then, so you'd use that code MastCell360. You can open the capsule on the Holozyme and start with sprinkles. That's really easy to do. And Joan's asking, is this better than Body Bio sodium butyrate? What I've learned is that this is a lot more bioavailable. It's got an enteric coating so that it gets down to where it's supposed to be in the small intestine. And so a lot of butyrate can get damaged in the stomach because of the stomach acid. And things like sodium butyrate, you can use that, but I've not seen as much change for people using the sodium butyrate. And for a lot of people with gut issues, it can be harder to cleave that sodium from the butyrate and get the butyrate itself. Now, if you can't use a tributyrin, there is a liquid butyrate out there that's a possibility, and it doesn't tend to be quite as effective, but it can get people started with using some butyrate. Okay, so I've got just one more here I want to show you, and then let's do some questions. This is one we've talked about just, oh my goodness, that's not what I meant to do. I clicked and it just went away from me. Okay, let's start over here. Huh. Okay, it's being a little strange, so I'm gonna just do it this way for you all. So we've used this hollow immune. We've been using this for, I believe, over a year, and I've been really happy with how this is helping. So hollow immune is what's called a para probiotic, which means it's not like a regular probiotic. So people who are getting gas and bloating with probiotics tend to do better with paraprobiotics. Now, they're not repopulating the gut. What they're doing is providing instructions to train the gut. And hollow immune can help with the gut immune health, gut immune balance, and immune support. It's been shown for there's been a lot of people that reported improvements in their histamine tolerance, their MCAS. One of the things I'm really excited that it can help with is there are some studies showing that it can help reduce some of the IgEs. Now, it doesn't mean if you have extreme IgE reaction to, say, peanuts or something like that, that it's going to get rid of it. But if you have a lot of that immune dysregulation, like I used to have with broccoli and things like that, it can help modulate that and just calm things down. So that's another one that you can get that $15 off with that code MastCell360. So I want to do some questions here for you guys. And just a quick reminder for anybody that was thinking about joining us, I've got the MCAS New Year Reboot coming up. This is a mindset program to really work through a lot of tools. And we're going to talk about mindset in healing and just set ourselves up for creating the health that we want in the coming year. And if you want to join me, this is the last week to sign up. It starts next week and it's $50 off through this Thursday at midnight. So you can use this code Beth50. So if you want to grab a screenshot of that, I'll leave that up for a minute and switch over here to doing some questions. All right. So we've had a number of people join us. We're going to do this in community, and we've got some community meditations and healings and things like that that I'm really excited about sharing with you all. And here's the link again, mastcell360.com/reboot. So this is the last week to sign up. All right. So let's dive into some of your questions. Um, all right. Let me see. Anna, there's a bit in this question. What's the best first supplement to onboard after calming my reactions? That's a hard one because, of course, it's very individual according to your sensitivities. Um, think about what it is that you're having the most trouble with. So, are you having trouble with breaking food down? Or is your stomach feeling heavy after you eat? Are you having symptoms after you're eating? So, that could kind of lead you to, are you looking more for digestion support? Are you looking for something that's mast cell calming? And then these are great questions, Anna. These are kind of the ones that somebody who has some experience could help guide you in because they need to look at your case, but think about that. Think about what's bothering you the most with eating, and that can kind of lead you to the next direction. All right. Cheryl, besides DAO and DHIST, so DHIST is a supplement that has some mast cell calming ingredients in it. What can I use to eat red meat? So often with meat, you want to do a combination of a overall digestive enzyme like that holozyme, plus something if your stomach's ready for it. So this is why I didn't get into the betaine because it kind of needs its own Facebook Live. But betaine HCl, if your stomach's ready for it, and we've got a blog post on that that you can dive into on digestive supports, and that might give you some clues, Cheryl. All right. So, Fatima has a question about salicylate sensitivity. What would you recommend? Say a lot of times related to mold toxicity. So we've got a whole Facebook Live on salicylates, and I want to refer you there because it's a lot more information than I can get to in this Q&A. Um, in terms of where to start for what we're talking about today, the holoimmune that we were just discussing is low salicylate. Looks like my slides are working again here, so I can pop that up for you. So that's one possibility of a low salicylate option to support your GI tract and your mast cells. And then if we're looking particularly at supporting the digestion, then holozyme is low salicylate with the kelp removed. So this new formula that's coming out. And then also the tributyrin, this is low salicylate. So typically you'll find a lot in that Facebook Live. Fatima and I talk a lot about salicylate sensitivity in the mold course. If you haven't had a chance to check that out. But for a lot of people, once they get out of mold and detox the mold, then this can improve a good bit. Okay. So, Taylor has an interesting comment here. I feel like the mast cells in my brain tell my olfactory system, so that's the sense of smell, and this nerve, the olfactory nerve going in the brain, isn't safe for chemical smells. That's right. And so sometimes people can start to have that with certain food smells as well. And that's where retraining that limbic system can really help in the calming down and being really calm before meals can help. All right. Crystal's saying, why in the world would I be developing an intolerance to white rice? Am I eating it too much if every day I only have a few safe foods? Are there supplements that help specifically with lectins if that's what's going on? So, anytime that we have a lot of mast cell activation, particularly if we're in an environment that has some toxins. So this is one of the things we have to look at. Or if we're in a very stressful lifestyle or toxic relationships, those are the most common ones. We can also have some GI infections or tick-borne infections or things like that that keep everything dysregulated. Then the mast cells can start to target anything. So that's why I really emphasize these signals from the nervous system to the mast cells and supporting those mast cells. If you only have a few safe foods, I don't know that you could rotate. So you want to work with a practitioner to really dive into that. There are some supplements that have been out there for helping with lectins. They've got a lot of higher oxalate things in them, like okra. So I've not used those too much. But we know about lectins, and lectins are a type of plant protein that for some people trigger mast cell activation. They're in a lot of grains like corn and wheat. They're in squashes and those nightshades, tomatoes, and eggplant, peppers, and things like that. So those lectin foods have a lot of nutrients, so not everybody needs to stop them, but sometimes people may need to take a break for a short term. White rice is fairly low in lectins, though, and so compared to brown rice, so I don't know that I'd be worrying about lectins so much. Sometimes, if we re-regulate the mast cells, then the lectin intolerance can improve. All right, let me turn this code off for you. I'll show that again one more time at the end for anybody who is wanting it. And so we've got some questions that have to do more with off-topic things. So I'm going to look specifically for ones that were about what we were talking about today. And let's see what I can find here. So, Sharon, this is a hard one about this delayed anaphylaxis. Of course, I don't know because it's really specific to you. So, I can just give you some big picture thoughts here. One, I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. And I don't know exactly why. So, I would be investigating that, hopefully, with somebody who can guide you and taking a look at it. But a lot of times, if we start to re regulate the nervous system and the immune system together, it can help, and I used to have a bit of anaphylaxis myself, and it took a while. The other thing is just, again, checking the environment, and so making sure you've got really good quality air, and we've got a lot on that air quality and things like that. So I just wanted to share that. I hope you get some relief there. All right. Um So people asking about salicylate intolerance, how do you know? We've got some good blog posts on that. And Gina's saying DAO is from pork. Have you had people allergic to pork not be able to tolerate it? Yes, that's a good question, Gina. And so the DAO supplements are derived from pork kidney. So if you have an IgE allergy to pork, that may not be the right thing for you. There are some beef kidney options. I don't know that they're quite as effective, but some people have been able to tolerate those if they can tolerate beef. And if it's an allergy, then yeah, you're right. You wouldn't have anything that was pork derived. Okay, so ZL is asking, can DAO, quercetin, chromin, sodium, and the tea be taken together at the same time if a person's sensitivities have lessened? Yes. A lot of people will take them at the same time. The DAO has shown that it's just a little bit better, a little closer to the meal, like 10 to 15 minutes, but you could certainly combine all of those as long as you're working with your prescriber on the chromin sodium. Mike's asking, what if you have trouble with B6? Then, there's just a milligram in there, so it's very small amount. If you do a sprinkle, it's almost none, but sometimes people have to have B1 on board before B6 if they're having trouble with that. So that's a whole nother topic I'd love to cover at some point is the role of B1 and what we can do with kind of stacking these bees, but that's just a quick thing to think about. And some people are asking about how to get things in the EU. So our team posted about this. Some suppliers don't ship to Europe, and so there is a third party shipping company called myus.com that a lot of people use. Okay, so Elizabeth, let's talk about this because this comes up a lot. Are digestive enzymes safe even though they're made from mold? And a lot of digestive enzymes that are in that um, full spectrum kind of category. So DAO doesn't come from mold, and betaine doesn't come from mold, but there are digestive enzymes. The vegetarian ones typically do. And so this is where high quality is very, very important. And I have seen people react to cheaper full spectrum enzymes. So we're talking about an enzyme like this one, like this holozyme. This one is a much it's a higher quality process. And so the the molds, from what I understand, in this type of process, and talking to Steve Wright, is that they are releasing the enzymes, but there's no mold residue, there's no mold mycotoxins in the actual enzyme. Whereas if they don't have as good of a process, then there might be. And so, just Elizabeth, be mindful of the quality of the company that you're using. And you don't want to use the cheaper, the lower grade digestive enzymes if you have a mold allergy. And then Michelle's asking, is the holozyme safe for those with alpha gal? And so, alpha gal, you all, if you're not familiar with it, I'm going to pop these ingredients up here. Alpha gal is a it's a syndrome that some people can develop from being bit by a Lone Star tick, to where they react to mammalian proteins. So that's going to be any animal that gives live birth. So cow, pork, bison, these types of things. And but not chicken. The chickens lay eggs. They're not mammals. So none of the poultry or fish or things like that is a problem. So what we're looking for is animal products, and these are all the none of these are animal products in here. So I'll go through some of these others just briefly for you, for anybody who's curious about that. And so DAO is derived from pork, so that would be a mammal. Then the tributyrin X does not have any mammal products, and the holoimmune doesn't have any mammal products. So, but betaine does come from typically, it's typically mammal derived, so pork derived. Okay, let's see if we can find just a few more questions. Oh, this is nice from Fatina. She says very sensitive, tolerating the Tributyrin X, slowly worked up to 3 caps, already feeling sensitivities lessening. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I'm very excited for you as well. Okay. And Susan, yeah, we had a few questions about alpha gal, so I'm glad we were able to dive into that. Then Joan's asking about, do we recommend TUDCA or ox bile to help with fat? So typically, I suggest people start with some lipase because that's really gentle. And then they could try some ox bile products. TUDCA I talk about in our mold course in more depth, but with TUDCA, so TUDCA you all is a type of supplement that you can take. And TUDCA, what it does is it thins the bile. So if the bile is really sludgy, sometimes that helps people, but it's a tricky one in this population if you have any sensitivities. If you have any gallstones, you want to be really careful about TUDCA. You may not want to take it. But the TUDCA is thinning the bile, and the bile holds a lot of toxins, so you're going to get more toxin release. So you have to really be careful about when you introduce that. So that's not usually, I think it's a great supplement. It's just not usually a starter one for me, for sensitive people. Okay, and then Elizabeth saying she gets geographic tongue. No, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a no food. It may just mean it could be. I can't tell you for certain, but it could be just general inflammation with eating. So you could try some of these strategies that we talked about today, and both the nervous system part and then the things that help calm the GI tract. You may need more than that, because if you're down to 5 foods, you wanna get some support on getting those up soon so you got your nutrients. Um, Fliss says Ketotifen gave severe stomach cramps. She said to stop it. This is, a very rare response to Ketotifen, but some people have had that. I've seen it one other time, Fliss, and so it just may not be. Might have to try some other things, may not be right for you. Most of people that are sensitive that try it don't have that, but it does happen on occasion for people. All right, let me see if I can take just 2 more questions here. Okay, Joe, top tips for diarrhea. Gosh, figuring out what's triggering it, of course. And then based on that, it's really case by case, but sometimes if it's being triggered by toxins, appropriate binders can help. Tributyrin X can help. If there's like C. diff, you've got to address that. So it's a real complicated one, but there's some initial thoughts there. And, um, gosh, there's a lot of great questions in here. Some of these personal ones I really would love to help with, but there's just too much to dive into. And let's talk about Allison's question here about black seed oil. Lillian was asking about it too. And so, black seed oil is also called Nigella sativa and or black cumin seed oil. It can help calm mast cells. It has shown to have mast cell calming properties, but it's very strong and it also has some antimicrobial properties. So that's usually more in my tier 3 support for people who are more robust. I don't usually use it in sensitive people. Some people have tolerated it, but I have to, and I try to be a little more conservative with sensitive people. So that's those are my thoughts there. And then Miriam was asking, do we have practitioners who work online with people? We do have a clinic. And so if you go to mastcell360.com/application, you can apply to our clinic. And we used to have about a 3-year waiting list. We've gotten that down considerably. And we have a whole team. And so we've got myself and Alex Bingham as lead practitioners, lead consultants. Now we're consultants, so we don't prescribe, we don't diagnose, but we can support you in your journey and help with ideas and plans and protocols and checking out some of the test kits that may help with some information. So you still need a local medical provider overseeing your case, but the um, the clinic has helped quite a bit of people. So I hope that answers your question, Miriam. And then, Mike, would you post for our team which code's not working so they can get that fixed for us right away? Thank you for letting us know. All right, everybody, it's been so good to be with you. There's a lot more questions here. I love the community support where you all have supported one another and with ideas. And just a quick reminder again, if you haven't signed up yet and you want to join me for our MCAS New Year Reboot. This is the mindset course. We're not going over supplements or protocols or things like that. We're really working on our visioning. We're doing a lot of healing meditations, brand new meditations, things that are not in the mast cell nervous system reboot. I've got all kinds of things planned for you all. We have a curriculum together. If you've not seen it, you can take a look and see what we're going to cover. But we're going to have so much. I think we're going to have fun. We're going to have a lot of healing and community and connection. And that's when being safety and community is very, very healing for people. And so that's what we're going to do. That's coming up. And the last day to register is just this Thursday, January 18th at midnight Pacific time. And your coupon code is Beth50 there, and it's $50 off. And so I hope you can join me. In the meantime, we'll be back next week. And I believe if I have the topic correct, I believe we're going to be talking about sleep and improving our sleep. And so Things could shift, but that's what's on the agenda for right now. Take really good care of yourself, and I'm sending you lots of gratitude for being here and love for your healing journey. And I'll see you soon.